My name is Jack, and I was never the favorite son. Not because I failed, but because I succeeded. And for that, they used me. I paid their bills, fixed their house, and made sure they never struggled. Meanwhile, my brother did nothing, and still got everything. But nothing prepared me for the ultimate betrayal. The day I found out their will left everything to him. This time, I wasn't going to let it slide. It happened on an ordinary evening at my parents' house. The same house I had been helping them pay for over the past 6 years. Mortgage payments, home repairs, emergency expenses. Whenever they needed help, I was there. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Lucas, lived carefree, never lifting a finger. And apparently, my parents had no problem rewarding that. That night, my father asked me to scan some documents for him, routine financial paperwork. As I shuffled through the stack, a folder caught my eye. The label read, Estate Plan and Last Will and Testament. My stomach twisted. I wasn't the type to snoop, but something about it felt off. I had been the one keeping them afloat financially. Shouldn't I at least know how things were set up for the future? With a deep breath, I opened the folder. And what I saw made my blood run cold. Everything, the house, the savings, every single asset was going to Lucas. My name wasn't even mentioned, except for a single line. We love both of our sons equally. Yeah, sure. That's why the golden child got everything while the one actually taking care of them got nothing. I sat there in stunned silence, my hands trembling as I clutched the papers. My mind raced. Had this always been the plan? Had they always seen me as just a financial safety net with no real value? Years of sacrifices, of stepping up, of making sure they never struggled. Was I just some disposable asset to them? A mix of rage and betrayal boiled in my chest. I had no idea how long I had been sitting there when my father walked back into the room. Hey, what's taking so long? His voice was casual, oblivious. I didn't even try to hide the document. I held it up and looked him dead in the eyes. So this is how it is? My voice was eerily calm. Everything to Lucas? After everything I've done for you? His face paled. For a brief moment he looked guilty. But then he sighed. Like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Jack, it's not what you think. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh, really? Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. At that moment, my mother walked in. She glanced at my father, then at the will in my hands. A flicker of guilt crossed her face, but she quickly masked it with a soothing tone. Jack, honey, you don't need the inheritance. I blinked. Excuse me? She placed a gentle hand on my arm, as if she was doing me a favor. You have a stable career, a good life. Lucas, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of. I scoffed. Struggles? He's never had a job, never paid a bill, never contributed anything. And yet, he deserves everything. Jack. My father interrupted, his tone now firmer. It's complicated. No, I snapped. It's really not. You decided I was good enough to be your personal ATM, but not good enough to be acknowledged as your son. Before they could respond, Lucas strolled in, a bag of chips in his hand. Hey, what's up? I turned to him, seething. Did you know? He raised an eyebrow. Know what? That everything is being left to you. The house, the money, everything. Lucas barely reacted. He just shrugged. I mean, yeah? They always said they'd take care of me. Something inside me shattered. Must be nice, I muttered. To live your whole life knowing you'll be taken care of no matter what. Lucas smirked. Well, I didn't ask for it. My fists clenched. No, he didn't. But he sure as hell never turned it down. Either. I turned back to my parents. So what was I? Just the responsible one? The one you could count on to pay your bills? Fix your house? Clean up Lucas's messes? They didn't answer. The silence was louder than any excuse they could have given. And that was all I needed to hear. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. Then, I set the will down on the table with deliberate calm. Got it, I said, glad to know where we stand. And with that, I walked out the door, knowing that, for the first time, they were going to have to figure things out without me. I didn't look back as I walked out of my parents' house that night. The cool night air did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. My own family had made their choice, And it wasn't me. For years, I had been the one holding everything together, paying their bills, fixing their problems, making sure they never had to struggle. But when it came down to it, I wasn't their priority. I wasn't even a consideration. As I drove home, my phone started buzzing with calls and texts. I ignored them. I knew exactly what they'd say. They'd try to justify it. They'd try to make me feel like I was the unreasonable one. They'd act like I was overreacting. But I wasn't overreacting. I was finally seeing the truth. For the first time in years, I didn't check in. I didn't call. More importantly, I didn't send them money. If they wanted Lucas to be their future, then Lucas could start taking care of them. Before I continue with this story, I want to connect with all of you, my incredible viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below, and let's see how far this community reaches. 2 weeks passed. Silence. At first, I thought they might finally be respecting my decision. Maybe they realized what they had done. Maybe, just maybe, they were actually reflecting on their actions. But no. The first message came from my father. It was short, direct, and completely devoid of any emotion. The property taxes are due. That was it. No greeting, no apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened. Just a cold, transactional message. As if nothing had changed. As if I were still expected to play my role. I stared at my screen, almost amused at how predictable they were. They truly thought I would just cave. That I'd keep playing my part as their financial safety net, even after they had made it clear I was disposable. I took my time before responding. Finally, I typed, "I'm sure Lucas will handle it since the house is his and all." 5 minutes later, my phone rang. My mother. I let it ring. Then another text popped up. "Jack, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that the bills were piling up. Now that reality was finally sinking in. I waited an hour before responding. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now live with it." I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I had made my stance crystal clear, and there wasn't a single part of me that felt guilty about it. But then Lucas decided to chime in. His message came in late that evening, and the second I saw his name pop up, I knew it was going to be something obnoxious. "Dude, why are you being so dramatic? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do." I nearly laughed. Not a big deal. He was really acting like I had no right to be mad about this. I responded simply, "I think you've got it covered, since you're the favorite and all." His response came almost immediately. "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money. It's funny how it's always just money, when it's not theirs on the line." I shot back, "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay the mortgage, right?" Silence. Minutes passed. Then another message came through. This time from my mother. "Jack, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us." I took a deep breath, resisting the urge to throw my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I had spent years making sure they never had to struggle. I had sacrificed my own money, my own time, my own energy to keep them comfortable. And now that they actually had to deal with the consequences of their own decisions, I was the bad guy. I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I typed, "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Lucas can take care of you." I could almost hear my mother gasping dramatically at that. She always had a flair for acting like the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. A few minutes later, my father sent another text, and this one had me seething. "We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word made my blood boil. I had been bailing them out for years. I had been sacrificing my own stability to make their lives easier. I had done everything a good son was supposed to do. And how did they repay me? By making sure I got nothing in return. And now, when I was finally standing up for myself, I was the selfish one. I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and typed my final response. "No, I'm done." Then I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now they were going to live with it. The silence didn't last long. The next morning, I woke up to another text from my father. This time, it was even more desperate. "Jack, you're really going to let us lose the house over this?" I sighed, tossing my phone onto the nightstand. It was almost laughable how predictable they were. When their manipulation didn't work, they escalated to full-blown guilt trips. A few hours later, my mother tried again. "Jack, please. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you'd understand." Understand what exactly? That after years of carrying this family on my back, I was worth nothing to them? That all my sacrifices meant so little they didn't even bother to consider me in their future? I ignored her text. But by the evening, they took things even further. I was at work when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, more texts one after another. My stomach twisted when I saw the latest message. "We're downstairs." For a moment, I just stared at the words, my pulse pounding in my ears. They wouldn't, would they? A second later, my front desk called. "Jack, your parents are here. They say it's an emergency." I clenched my jaw, gripping the edge of my desk. They actually showed up. Taking a deep breath, I forced my voice to stay calm. "Please don't let them up." The receptionist hesitated. "They're being persistent." "I don't care. Tell them I'm not available." I hung up and let out a slow breath, trying to push down the frustration bubbling inside me. But of course, my phone buzzed again. "Jack, we're not leaving until you talk to us." My hands curled into fists. They had spent years dismissing me, taking me for granted, using me like an ATM. And now, suddenly, they refused to be ignored? Fine. They wanted to talk? Let's talk. I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs. The moment I stepped outside, I spotted them standing by the entrance. My mother, looking distressed, my father, stiff with frustration, and Lucas, leaning against the car with that same uninterested expression he always had. Like this was just another mild inconvenience in his otherwise easy life. My mother's face lit up when she saw me. "Jack, finally, we need to." "No." I cut her off coldly. "You need to leave." Her smile faltered. "Sweetheart, we just want to talk." "There's nothing to talk about." I crossed my arms, standing firm. "You made your choice. Now deal with it." My father stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge?" I let out a bitter laugh. "A petty grudge? You mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to be part of the family? That grudge." My mother clutched her chest like I had just struck her. "Jack, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family." I narrowed my eyes. "No. You did what was best for Lucas." Silence. Lucas, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke. "Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything." I turned to him, my patience wearing thin. "No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you." I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "You're 28 years old, Lucas. Get a damn job." His face turned red. "What the hell is your problem?" "My problem?" I let out a sharp breath, shaking my head. "My problem is that I've been the one paying for everything while you've done absolutely nothing. And yet, somehow, I'm the one who doesn't deserve anything." Lucas shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't argue. My mother reached for my arm. "Jack, please. We're family. Family takes care of each other." I pulled away. "Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me?" She froze, her lips parting, but no words came out. I turned to my father. "You raised me to be responsible, to work hard, to support my family. And I did. But you," I gestured between the two of them, "you raised Lucas to be dependent, to expect everything handed to him. And now you're panicking because I finally stopped playing along." My father's face darkened. "We gave you everything, Jack. Food, shelter, clothes." I laughed humorlessly. "That's the bare minimum of parenting. Don't act like you did me some great favor." His nostrils flared. "You're being selfish." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "No. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. And if that makes me selfish, so be it. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Jack, we're going to lose everything. We have nowhere else to go. For a moment I hesitated. Not because I was reconsidering, no, I had made my decision. But because, for the first time, I saw it. The fear in her eyes. The helplessness in my father's stance. The way Lucas looked away, finally realizing that he might have to step up for once in his life. They had spent years treating me like an afterthought, assuming I would always be there, that I would always clean up their messes. But this time I wasn't going to save them. I took a deep breath and met my mother's gaze. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, finally forced to face the consequences of their own choices. I didn't look back as I walked away. I didn't need to. I could feel the weight of their stares burning into my back, the stunned silence that followed my words. But I wasn't going to let guilt pull me back in. Not this time. For the first time in years, I felt something close to relief. A lightness in my chest that had been missing for as long as I could remember. I wasn't just walking away from that confrontation. I was walking away from all of it. The obligations, the expectations, the invisible chains that had bound me to a family that only saw me as a paycheck. But if I thought that was the end of it, I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of notifications. My phone was flooded, texts, missed calls, voicemails. And then I saw it. My parents had taken their fight to Facebook. My mother's post was long, dramatic, and filled with just enough vague wording to make me look like the villain. Family should never turn their backs on each other. After everything we've done, after all the love and sacrifices, it's heartbreaking when your own child abandons you in your time of need. We raised him, gave him everything, and now, when we need him most, he's nowhere to be found. A parent's love is unconditional, but the pain of betrayal, it's unbearable. It had hundreds of likes and comments. Friends, distant relatives, even people I barely knew chimed in with their sympathy. Stay strong. Some kids just forget where they come from. I can't believe he'd do this to you. And then, of course, there was Lucas's post. Some people think family is just about money. They don't understand that true family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. I actually laughed out loud when I read it. The sheer hypocrisy was astounding. For years I had sacrificed. Me. I had been the one carrying the weight, making sure my parents never struggled, while Lucas coasted through life. And now, he had the audacity to paint himself as the devoted son? I could have ignored it, let them spin their narrative however they wanted. But I had been silent for too long, so I did something I had never done before. I told my side of the story. I opened my own Facebook account, the one I barely used, and started typing. I know my family has been posting about me, and I wasn't going to say anything, but I think it's time for the truth. For years, I have financially supported my parents. I paid their bills. I covered their mortgage. I made sure they never struggled. I did it because I loved them, not because I had to. Meanwhile, my brother contributed nothing. He didn't work. He didn't help. He lived rent-free while I took care of everything. And despite all that, when my parents wrote their will, they left me nothing. They gave everything to my brother. When I found out, I walked away. Not because I'm selfish, but because I finally realized that in their eyes, I was never their son. I was just their financial safety net. They made their choice. Now they have to live with it. I hit post. And then, I put my phone down. I didn't check it for hours. But when I finally did, I was shocked. The response was overwhelming. People I hadn't spoken to in years commented. Some of my extended relatives, people who had originally supported my parents, switched sides. Friends messaged me, offering support. Even a few of my parents' close friends privately told me that they had no idea how much I had been doing for them. And then came the fallout. My mother called, furious, screaming, "How dare I air our family's dirty laundry?" I let her rant. Then, when she finally stopped to take a breath, I calmly said, "You had no problem lying about me online. I just set the record straight." Before she could respond, I hung up. Lucas tried next. His message was short and bitter. Wow. Can't believe you'd do this to Mom and Dad. Hope you're happy. I didn't respond. He wasn't worth it. But the real surprise came later that evening. A number I didn't recognize called. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something told me to pick up. It was my parents' lawyer. Jack, I thought you should know. Your parents have been inquiring about selling the house. It seems they're struggling with the mortgage. I felt a strange mix of emotions. A part of me felt a twinge of guilt, because despite everything, this was their home. But the larger part of me knew this was the consequence of their own choices. They should ask Lucas for help, I said. The lawyer was silent for a moment. Then, in a quieter voice, he said, "Between you and me, I don't think Lucas has any money." Of course he didn't. He had spent years coasting off of them, just like they had spent years coasting off of me. And now, when it was time for him to step up, he had nothing to give. I thanked the lawyer and hung up. I sat in my apartment for a long time thinking, wondering if I should feel worse about what had happened. But the truth was I didn't. For years I had done my part. And when my parents showed me that I didn't matter, I finally believed them. Now, for the first time, I was free. This story isn't just about money or inheritance. It's about self-worth, boundaries, and finally standing up for yourself. Too often, we stay in toxic family dynamics out of obligation, believing that love means sacrifice, even when it's one-sided. But true family isn't about blood. It's about respect. Jack's journey is a powerful reminder that we are allowed to walk away from people who only take and never give. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this story? Comment 2 if you liked it or 7 if you didn't. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Mr.HeartVibes for more incredible stories that make you think, feel, and maybe even see things in a new light. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below.